to Onyx Woman. I am Ola Jackson. I am the founder of Own the Onyx Woman Network. We have been a voice and given a voice to women of color for different aspects of their lives, everything from fashion to career to entrepreneurship and your relationships. And relationships are a big topic, especially when it comes to women of color, all kinds of relationships. But over the past few months, I have been getting feedback to women who really have not been having the best experience. And we want to try to help you, as you start your new year, make some decisions about how you're going to evaluate and assess and move on with these relationships. And I came across a very interesting lady who wrote a very interesting book. And the book is called HIV Infected by Her Cheating Pastor Husband. It is written by Darlene King, and it's the wife's courageous, true story of betrayal, survival, and forgiveness. And Darlene, I want to welcome you to our show.
Thank you so much. First of all, Ola, for having me. I really appreciate you asking me to come on your show, and I count it an honor and a blessing, and I'm truly happy to be able to do your show this morning.
Well, I thank you, and as you said to me, Ola, when folks pick up my book, they can't put it back down, and I found that to be true. Now, I hear that said a lot, but with this book, it was quite true. This subject that you are writing about is a very touchy issue in the African-American community because we have a different way of looking at our pastors, and you happen to be married to one, and I'm going to let you start by telling us your story.
Well, I was married to a pastor, and our story goes way back. I was previously married, and when him and I got together, it was actually at our 10-year high school reunion. We had known each other from the age of 12, so we had been boyfriend and girlfriend off and on over and over again. But at the 10-year high school reunion, we began to date. And as we're dating, we're having sex. We're not using protection. And I'm thinking this is a one-on-one relationship with just him and I, but unfortunately, he was a cheater. And he cheated repeatedly. And initially, I didn't know that he was constantly cheating on me. But then he finally began to get caught. And he would keep getting caught. And I would stay in the relationship, and he would always promise never again. But towards the end of that relationship when we were dating, I said, I can't be with you anymore. You keep cheating with all these women. You're going to get HIV. I said, I just can't be with you anymore. And we broke up. And that is the period of time that I believe we were actually infected with HIV. I was in another relationship with my second daughter's father, and we broke up. And so at the time in which I found out, and I found out through the Red Cross, I found out by giving blood, which I always did at my job. And at the time I found out, I wasn't dating anyone. So the Red Cross tells you, contact everyone you've been with in the past 10 years, which was the children's father and him. And they tested negative, and he tested positive. But initially when I contacted him, he even lied about that. He already knew he was positive.
So at the time when you were dating him and you actually had it, you were saying that you had a relationship with somebody else. Was it unprotected sex with them too?
Yes, but that's the interesting thing about this disease. It can actually lie dormant. It can lie dormant for an unknown period of time, and some people you can find it lying dormant for years, and some people you can find it lying dormant for a short period of time. In my case, it actually lied dormant because when it came to me giving blood, the Red Cross would come to our job on a quarterly basis So I gave blood all the time. You know, O negative was my blood type. They always said, "Oh, we need O negative. It's a neutral blood type. We can use it in other people." So I always gave. So even during that period of time, I still continued to give blood every quarter when they would come to my place of employment. And so the blood never tested positive. At this point, I'm not dating anyone, and then my blood tests positive. So that's when I told all three of them, everybody get tested, and which is what they tell you to do. You know, anybody you've been with over the past 10 years, get tested.
Wow.
So they tested, and they tested negative. And he said he would get tested, but he went into the, which you've probably read about, the I love you, I've always loved you, you're the love of my life, I want to marry you, let's just get married. It doesn't matter, I'll take the test, but it doesn't matter what the outcome is going to be. I want to marry you. And I believed it. I believed that he meant what he said. And he then says he got tested, and it tested positive. So I should have known at this point now we do get married. But at that point also, I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell my dad. My sisters and brothers have a big family, and I didn't tell anyone because I just felt like, you know, him and I had the discussion that we were going to be there for one another. We were going to take care of the children.
Now, was he giving you the impression that he got it from you? At this point?
He at that point was, because he knew already of other people he had also infected. So he couldn't come at me with that lie. He knew he couldn't because there were other women who we knew were also positive that he had infected. So he knew he had infected me, but at the same time, he was more focused on the I love you, the part of the deception. It was more not focusing on how we got it, but the fact we have it now, what's the next step? You know, we can't
those
change.
People, the three people that you were talking, that you notified, because it lays dormant, there's a possibility that they can have it later.
They previously got tested several times after that, and they were still negative.
Okay,
because
but that still doesn't mean that sometime down the road that they could have it.
Well, it's been now 22 years.
Okay.
It's so the likelihood that they will contract it, unless they've contracted it some other type of way, I would say no, that they didn't contract it for me.
Now, is it easier for men to give it to women than women to give it to men?
I've heard that it's easier for women to give it to men because of, you know, the openness and the it's hard to be able to say it on a radio show, but just think of the way in which we have sex and the whole process of copulation, and you know, they say that it's easier for women to give it to men than men to give it to women. But at the same time, it can be passed by both parties. Women can give it to men, and men can give it to women. You know, and when you're repeatedly having sex with women over time, you can give it to women. And he actually did give it to several women that we knew of before we were married.
Wow.
So,
now what is it like when you have to go to somebody and say, there's a possibility that I have, well, you knew you had HIV, so what do? You call them over the phone? You see them face to face? What is it like to tell?
Well, in my case, since it was just two people, and two people that I had a very close relationship with, my children's father, I was able to sit down and have a conversation with them and explain to them what was going on, and actually tell them, you have to get tested. You know, this is what's happening. This is what the doctor said. This is what the Red Cross has said. Because I didn't know a lot about the disease then. So it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. To sit down and have the conversation because they were very supportive. You know what I mean? They weren't judgmental. They were very supportive, but they were also worried. I was worried. They were worried. We were all worried because at that beginning stage, we really didn't know. Okay, where is this coming from? We have 3 people here. Where is it coming from? So it wasn't until my husband, which became my husband, tested positive that we knew where it came from.
Oh, okay.
At that point, you're negative. You know, they're both negative, and he's positive.
Now,
and
so therefore,
he had more of a sexual history than the rest of us because he couldn't contact the women that he had been with because he didn't know most of the women that he had been with.
Oh, wow. Lord have mercy. Whew.
So, he wasn't able to contact them.
Okay, now, so he's not really just finding out when you tell him to go get tested, is he? Or did he already know and just didn't tell you?
He knew and did not
tell me. Wow.
He knew. So when I went to him, his whole approach to me was, let's get married. Let's get married. Let's be there for each other when we get sick. Let's be there to take care of one another. Let's make arrangements to make sure our children are taken care of because at this point I have 2 children, he has 3 children, and that was the whole plan. You know, we're going to take care of one another. And I should have known all bets were off when exactly 1 year to the day of us getting married, on our first wedding anniversary, on the exact date, he had another child by someone else.
Oh, my God.
On our wedding anniversary. And the baby was born on our anniversary. And that was the beginning of just a repeat, continuous. And now he knows, of course, that he's HIV positive. There's no question that he's HIV positive.
Oh, yeah, he's still at it.
And I was convinced, even though I knew at this point now, this person is a person who cheats. I would have paid money to tell someone, oh, he's not going to cheat anymore now that he knows he has HIV.
Wow.
I would not have imagined that he would continue cheating once he had HIV. And then once the baby was born, I said, absolutely no way he's going to continue cheating.
Wow.
And the cheating never stopped. And he would just get caught. I would leave. I'd come back. And at this point, we're married. So it's a process of him getting caught, me leaving, and coming back. And it just goes on and on and on. So eventually you get those periods where you believe anyway, because you don't have any signs. He hasn't been caught, so you believe the cheating has stopped. And he becomes a minister initially.
Wow.
And at this point, when he's a minister, the big blow up comes when I'm babysitting our youngest baby. Has a little friend that comes and plays with him on the weekends when they play little pee-wee basketball games. And he worked the night shift and sometimes the weekend shift, so I would have the children and take the kids to their games, or he would take the kids to the games, and I'd be in the house with all the kids, and he'd be gone. And this little boy, sweet little boy, spent the weekends with us all the time and played with our youngest son. And this particular Sunday, we drop him off on Sundays at the church. And this particular Sunday, we drop him off. And we just know. I mean, men may know too, but women can have an.
Are you going to tell me that was his child?
No, it wasn't.
Are you not going to tell me? Okay.
It was not his child.
Okay.
But he had me babysitting while he was cheating with the child's mother.
Oh, my
I was babysitting
God.
On the weekends
for
several months while they played in this little pee-wee league. I had the baby on the weekends. He was with her on the weekends, and I was the babysitter.
Oh,
yes, he did. Kept me babysitting. And that was a big blow up. That was like, oh no, this is it. I'm done. And I thought I was done, but of course I wasn't done.
Let me grasp all this. Okay, you're babysitting for this child, and he's with the child's mother having an affair. Now, does his mother know? Well, I guess she knew her. Yeah, obviously she did. Wow,
she knew.
And then we're talking about relationships, and I'm going to come back to this. And because I read in your book about women who, when they're having sex with all these people, and he's having sex with all these women, and really all this, you're really having sex with all these people that they had sex with. Almost like that commercial, and you tell 10 people, they tell 10 people. And there was a commercial a while back where they showed pictures of all these people who you may have think you didn't sleep with, but because somebody you slept with them. And all this is going on. And women aren't even thinking about this, but also the fact that there are women out there who will sleep with anybody, and even if the man is married. And that's a whole other book. These women who are out here so promiscuous, I guess it's low self-esteem, and they're just they don't care. And meanwhile, what they don't know, he has HIV.
That's right. They don't know it. And the thing is, I saw it when we dropped him off. I looked at her, and I don't know if it went on the whole time that I babysitted, but that particular weekend that I found out, I had been babysitting for several weekends prior to that. And when we pulled up in the car to drop him off, and him and her having an exchange, and they're basically talking about the game. They're not talking about anything, other than normal stuff, the kids' games and whatever. And I'm looking at her, and I'm looking at him, and in my head, I am screaming. I can't scream out loud because all the children are in the car. And I'm just saying to myself, no, he does not have me babysitting while he's sleeping with her. And when I got home and got in my bedroom, trying to shield it from the children, and I got him to myself, I said, "You are sleeping with her," and he denied it up and down.
Wow.
He never would admit it. He said, "No, I am not." He did not admit it. Well, clearly he called her and he told her that I knew. So she had the boldness to get on the phone and call me and called my house the next day. And she told me that they were going to be together, and he was leaving me for her. And the first thing out of my mouth was, "Did he tell you he had HIV?"
Oh, my God.
And she went silent on the phone. And I said, "I'm going to presume from your silence that he did not tell you." And that conversation ended. Can't remember she hung up first or if I hung up, but within the next couple of days, it wasn't long, she called me back again, and she said, "You lied." He said, "He told me that you lied because you wanted to keep us apart." And I said,
God.
"Well, I'll tell you what, you can have them, but in 6 months, get yourself tested," which is the time frame that they tell you if you think you've been exposed to get tested, and then continue to repeatedly get tested for a while, just to make sure. But I said, in 6 months, get yourself tested, and then you'll find out which one of us are lying. And I packed up, and I left again. And that was when we end up, I was planning on moving to Delaware by myself. And he convinced me. I left, packed up, left, and he convinced me to move to allow him to move to Delaware with me. He said, "We're going to go to Delaware. We're going to get a fresh start. We're going to start all over again. We're going to put this behind us. It'll be a new state. It'll, kids will be in a new school, new friends. Everything was supposed to be new." I believed it. We all went to Delaware. We bought a house in Delaware.
Now, let me backtrack this a little bit because you can help a lot of women right here. Why did you keep believing him?
I believe more in the institution of marriage than I believed in him. I believed in my vows.
Did you just tell yourself this because Just
No,
did you?
I really believe, I always felt like Satan was trying to destroy my marriage. I
Mm-hmm.
believe that. I believe that in my heart. I didn't just tell myself that. I really believe that. As a woman of faith, I don't play when it comes to God. I'm serious. I
Uh-huh.
took those vows seriously. When I stood there, I felt like I'm standing in front of God and I am making a commitment to God and I am making a commitment to my husband. And I took those vows seriously. But two people have to take those vows seriously. This can't be one-sided. If
Mhm.
you're and when it comes to faith, you got to have two people who are truly faithful and committed to God. It can't be it's not a game. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever a man
Mhm.
soweth,
Mhm.
that shall he also reap. I don't play with God. So I really believe that Satan was trying to destroy my marriage and that
Wow.
we could have a dynamic ministry because one thing that when we did get to Delaware, now at this point I'm believing all the cheating has stopped.
Mhm.
There was the ministry, and that's when we started our own church, and he was the pastor of the church, and we had a
No, I'm
wonderful
actually
ministry.
as we're talking too, I'm actually Facebooking.
Okay.
Some so people are commenting. One lady some is saying, I got to hear more. She's saying, and I'm gonna put this up next week on our site because it's interesting because
And we can have a Q&A.
Yeah, we
If there's
could
an
because
opportunity
this
to
is
have
just
other women to be on the conversation to ask to
without a
ask
doubt because
questions.
you are like summing up a lot of women's behavior because
Oh yes,
you keep moving on wanting more and yet he's very comfortable deceiving you over and over and over again,
very comfortable.
almost like a sociopath, not even concerned about who he hurts.
Impact, not even concerned. And the thing is, I know he wasn't using condoms. One, because that fiasco with the baby that I was babysitting, when we
Mhm.
do finally move, he tells me that at that point when I was leaving, that there was a possibility that she could have been pregnant. Well, of course, there's no way that she could have been pregnant if
Yeah,
they were using
uh-huh.
condoms. But she turned out that she was not pregnant. Um, that was one, incident, and he refused to use condoms because even our infectious disease doctor tells us to continue to use condoms, even when you
Uh-huh.
are HIV positive, regardless of the fact that it's your husband, because there is a reinfection. You can reinfect one another. Somebody can
Wow.
have a strain, a strain of the virus that is worse than another person's strain of the virus. Someone's CD4 count and viral load count can be worse than another individual. And in our cases, that's exactly what it was. Because when it came to medication, I was very compliant, and I've always been
Mhm.
compliant. He was
So
not
how can you
compliant.
reinfect?
What
how are you any
what you're actually doing is you have a test that they do which is called a viral load, and a viral load basically measures the percentage of the virus that is circulating in your bloodstream. And if you have someone who has a small percentage of the virus circulating in their bloodstream because they're very compliant, they're taking their medication, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
your viral load ends up being a very low number, and it can get as low as undetectable. And you have another person who is not compliant, who continues to sleep with other people, who could have a strain of the virus that's worse than the strain that you have,
Wow, okay.
and they're sleeping with other people and then coming home and sleeping with you, and their viral load gets through the roof, we'll say, for example. Then
Wow.
you're continuing to go back and forth, as you're
Mhm.
sleeping with this
Mhm.
individual, you're getting more and more of the virus because your viral load is low, theirs is high, and you're just constantly, reinfecting yourself over and over again.
Wow.
So that was one thing that was happening. And the thing is, when that was happening, I didn't even realize that was happening. And I don't know how much time I know we're not going to have a lot of time because it's just too much.
We making some time for this.
It's just too much to tell. But I actually realized that when I left, I realized it more after I left than I did while I was there. Because and this is not something that the doctors say. This is my own scientific proof, and me and my doctor has discussed it. Is that when I was with him, my viral load was very high, and my T cell count was very low. So typically, what you want to happen if you're HIV positive, you want your CD4 cell count, which is your T cell count, you want that to be high. You want that to get that as high as you can. Your viral load, you want that to be low as you can. When I was with him and still having sex with him, mine was the reverse. My T cell count was low. My viral load was high. Now, I left in 2003. It is now almost 2013. So we're talking almost 10 years. In that time, I have not had sex since I left my husband.
So what prompted you to say, this is it, I'm out of here?
Oh my. Well, we've actually bypassed a whole bunch of stuff before I got to that point.
Okay.
So let's go back. We're now in Delaware. Everything's great. Wonderful ministry. Children, there's a lot of children in the neighborhood. We're reaching out to these kids. They're having a ball. Then I realized he's sleeping with some of the children's mother.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, okay, here we go again. Then and if you laugh, it's okay because I laugh now too, but I was crying then. Power and privilege is really what I believe that he wanted more than the faith and the servitude and the commitment. Being a pastor is the most humbling position that you can ask for because you are humbling yourself to be a servant to God. And that's how I look at it. And as a first lady, I am humbling myself to serve these people in this community. I'm not above them. They're not better than me. I am a servant. Just like Jesus is willing to get down and wash their feet, I'm willing to get down and do whatever I can to help lift up these people in this neighborhood any way that I can. But in his case, I believe it was all about power and privilege. He looked at pastorhood as power and privilege. And even in his lies, the lies had to even have him in a position of power and privilege. Okay. So now he is the pastor, and he is court in a strip club. And
he's in a strip club too. Wow. Oh my God.
He's in a strip club, and he's got court by people we know. The rumored is way down the line, so he knew it was going to get back to me eventually. And because he knew it was going to get back to me, it's like this was a prepared lie. But he had to prepare a lie from a position of power and privilege. He was
now
at
people.
The strip
There are
club.
folks who also call people like him sex addicts. But you
that's
consider
what
him
he
to
said.
be a
That's what he said
addict?
He was when I left. But we'll get there. But I gotta tell you this with this lie when he's courting the strip club, he said to me with a straight face that he was an undercover agent for the FBI and the DEA, and they sent him into the street club because he had street cred, and his friend who's a cop could be identified, and he had to go in for him.
Wow. He seemed like he was a sick
Can you
man,
get
too.
any crazier?
So you finally said, not at that point, you still stayed.
I'm still there. I'm still hanging in.
Wow.
I'm still there. And this is when I left. At this point now, it has gotten so bad. Now, we had a drug history when we were young adults, but God delivered us, and that was our past. This is now our present. As far as I knew, the drug history was gone. He's getting thinner and thinner. I'm convinced it's
Wow.
because he's not taking his medication. And I'm saying to
Mhm.
him, please go to the doctor. And I find out that he's on crack.
Oh
Actually, after
Lord.
I left, crack, cocaine, marijuana,
Oh
and
my
still trying
God.
to pastor at the same time. We
Mhm.
get in.
Now, as you when you look at his behavior, and you look at what has happened in a lot of churches with the pastors, you have them protesting about gay
Oh
behavior, only to
my.
find out that they have been engaged themselves. You hear about having affairs, even having children.
Mhm.
Um, and then what do you think when because like you said, people look up to them and have always in our community have held them in very high esteem. But even when they had their dirt, when I was going to hear stuff and it was whispered, but today it's almost a blatant type of thing where it's just not the same.
I think it's a sad state when we get to this point. I think several things. I think one, the few bad make us lump them all into the same category, and I believe that we
Mhm.
cannot, because there truly are faithful men and women of God in the black community
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
are really trying to help, serve, and also willing to help and serve the HIV/AIDS community, and really trying to shed a light on this disease because it's affecting us in a big
Mhm.
time way. And when you look at someone like him, just like you already have said, you're
Mhm.
looking at sociopathic behavior.
Mhm.
You're looking at someone who really doesn't take the office in the esteem in which it should be held. You're looking
Uh
at
huh.
someone who is only focused on self.
Right.
They're
Because
not
he
even
could have been a
focused on
doctor, he
God.
could have been a lawyer. He just so happened to use this and abuse his role as pastor
He
because um, women do tend to go after pastors.
they
That's
do.
no secret.
They do. And I hope we get to talk about that. One of the reasons
Mhm.
why I wrote this book was you got to be careful who you running after men in positions of power and privilege, because if you're running after them and they succumb to you,
Mhm.
then who else have they succumbed to? So you're saying to yourself, "Oh, I've had the opportunity to be with a pastor."
Uh huh.
Well, do you really, and they're married, and you know they're married.
Mhm. Mhm.
So do you really think you're the only one? Do you think that
Wow.
one's enough? I don't think one's enough. I think if
Mhm.
you're willing to succumb, you're willing to succumb to everyone that's going to come in your direction. And then it goes back to what we talked about in that calculation. You might be two people, but if each person has slept with five, and then their five have slept with five, went through that little calculation, and we came up with, just by sleeping with this one individual, you could end up sleeping with
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
62. That I think five is a small number when you get to
Mhm.
be,
Mhm.
in my case, my age, 53 years old. When you go back to, like, when you were teens, and when you were a young child, all the way up until whatever age you get to be as an adult, and you think of all the partners that you have had in
Oh,
all
sure.
the years,
Uh huh.
and all the partners that they have had. Well,
They've
guess
had,
what?
yeah, sure.
And you're sleeping with this one individual, but guess what? You're really sleeping with everyone that they have ever slept with,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
everyone that they have ever slept with have ever slept with.
Right. Uh
Can
huh.
you
Uh huh.
imagine how the number can go?
Oh
I
my
mean, the
God,
number
yes.
the number could be enormous,
Mhm.
and
What do you
especially
think
when
is
you.
up with these women who have basically made their sexuality their value? That's what they see. You see them half dressed walking down the street. You see them showing up at church with the breasts hanging out. The promiscuous behavior, how easily they are to even prey on somebody else's man.
I
What do
I
you
think
think
it's
is going on?
I think it's up self-esteem. I think it's the value that you have placed on yourself. In this culture, you have a culture of sex sells.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
You know, so for me, sex doesn't sell,
Mhm.
and I guess it's because of what I've been through. You can't sell me anything by using sex. When I see sex, I see destruction. Sex took away, almost destroyed, but did not, my faith and my relationship with God. But thank you, Lord, that I've held on to my relationship with God. But it took my home, it took my car, it took my job, it took my health, it took all my finances when I didn't have a job and had to spend all of everything that I had to try to survive. It took everything I've had. So for me, I look at sex in a whole different manner in which most individuals will look at sex. But
so how did you leave? Did you just say, I'm getting my suitcase and I'm going out the door, or what was the process?
Girl, went in trash bags. The process was when it really came to a point where I was like, he has lost his mind. Now at this point, he is completely gone. He's not even trying to hide the cheating. He is just gone for days at a time. Not answering his cell phone. I don't see him. I don't know where he is. He has stopped his direct deposit. I am struggling paying all the bills.
He's still punishing you.
Yes, in a sense, yes, I'm still being punished because now I'm trying to keep up with the house and everything with just my half of my portion of the pay income that's coming in the house, and I confront him because he will come in on Sundays, demand everybody get up, go to church, and put on this fake show that we're a family, and I refuse. I said, absolutely not. I said, I'm not going anywhere. And so for a couple months, I wouldn't go. And now I'm at the point where I have to get out of this, marriage. But I'm saying to myself, you have to leave, because we had an agreement when after that big blow up before we came to Delaware. The agreement was, if anything happens, if I cheat again, you will not have to pack up and leave. I will leave. Well, of course, that went out the door.
And we had a kept believing him. But how were your children impacted? I did read the part where you said you looked back and you saw your daughter's face. Now, I want you to talk to women, because
in a way that they were so sad
and
they were so miserable. And and I didn't realize, because the thing is, you think you're hiding from your children, because all these discussions that we would have, I would never have them in front of the children. I would never even talk to them about my feelings of what was going on. I would completely hide everything from them and completely hide everything from my family. And that's another reason why I wrote the book. Too much silence. Silence is killing us. But I hid it. So
it's something, because people who are in abusive relationships, they tend to think nobody else notices.
Yeah.
They act like they're hiding it, and when people know.
People know.
And sometimes, did you have friends who would tell you, why are you with this man? Because sometimes, too, when people are in these relationships, they don't listen.
No.
To friends. They're like, they find a way to justify why they're staying.
You don't, and you do. You justify why you're staying. I justified it with, I made a commitment, and I'm sticking with my commitment. Well, guess what? 2 people made a commitment, and 2 people have to stick with that commitment. But when we got to the point where the big blow up on the day that I left, and he, even though I have been verbally abused, disrespected, dishonored, and mistreated in every kind of way, this particular day when we got into an argument, and now the children can hear. Now we're arguing to the point where now everybody in the house can hear. And he kicks me.
Oh,
And he
wow.
kicks me in the stomach. And then he says, I'm married beneath me. And at this
Wow.
point, he's on crack.
Listen, I find it psychologically, it's just amazing how he treated you bad, but yet wanted to continue to bring you down, because it seems as if self-esteem of the woman is such a big issue that he wanted to even bring you down some more in spite of all that he's done. He wants to just kick you down again to continue to have control.
Yes.
No matter how wrong he did to you, he wants to still bring you down.
But you know what? I thank God for that kick, and I thank God for those words, because it was like the biggest wake-up call that you would ever receive.
Wow.
And I looked him in the face. So many things passed my mind, and I'm not going to say them on your
Yeah. We'll leave that up to our imagination.
But I said to him, at that point, all I could think of to say was, no, I married beneath me. And I said to him, I said, you have to leave. And he then went into the plea, please, let's try and work this out. I have a sex addiction, which I didn't believe. I didn't believe that he had a sex addiction. I'm sorry. I didn't believe it. I didn't even put it in the book because I didn't believe it. And I said, well, if you have a sex addiction, I said, then what you have to do is you have to go into counseling and you have to seek help. And I said, and you're going to have to go into marriage counseling. I said, you're going to have to resign as pastor. I said, because you're not going to continue to do what you're doing and be the pastor of the church. You're going to have to resign. You're going to have to get counseling, and you're going to have to get marriage counseling if we're going to try and make this marriage work. And he said, I'm not going anywhere, and I don't need any counseling. And I said, well, then you're going to have to leave. And he said, I'm not going anywhere. This is my house. I'm not leaving. And I said, okay. I started grabbing trash bags, whatever I could, packed up what me and my children could, and our associate pastor at that point, now everybody's there. Now, of course, the kids have already been on the phone calling my family, and I have a big family, so they came from out of the woodworks from Pennsylvania before you could know it. And now everyone's there. His family's there. My family is there. Our associate pastor is there. And he confides in the associate pastor, and he tells the associate pastor that he's going to resign. And I said, I'm leaving. I'm done. I'm leaving. I said, I'm not arguing over this house. It wasn't worth it. I would rather take 2 minutes of peace than to argue with you over this house.
Now, what role did your family play prior to this? Were they telling you, your family, were they saying to you?
I didn't tell them. There's a lot.
So all this, okay, but do you think they still suspected that there was something wrong with this marriage? Because you were trying to hide it.
There were times that the cheating occurred that they would tell me to get out. But a lot of the times I would not tell them because I have a big family. And it's no telling what they would have done to them.
Right, would have done.
So I purposely did not tell them. So today,
now, have your kids said anything to you at all during this time? Have they said, throughout the years? Have your children said, Mom, why are you in this?
They were so young when we initially got together that they didn't say anything throughout the years in the beginning. Because in the beginning, you have to, in the beginning, they were 9 months old and 5 years old.
Oh,
so they were very, very young.
So how did he treat them? How was his behavior toward them?
In the beginning, great relationship in the beginning. It was always fun and games. I mean, we were very active in sports. The kids were always in sports and all kinds of activities. So in the beginning, the kids, they were oblivious. As they got older and as they got into their teen years, that's when kids begin to notice,
right.
And I just remember saying, it was always, for me, because it was like I was the disciplinarian when it came to my children.
Mhm.
He knows my family, and he knew my mother. And you just don't mess with my kids.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it was like everything was just a complaint. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. And I said, have you ever tried to just sit down and talk to them? I said, instead of just complaining about, they didn't do the dishes, they didn't vacuum the floor, they didn't clean the bathroom, they didn't do this.
Mhm.
I said, just instead of just, because I come in the door, from work, like I said, he's the night shift, I'm the day shift. I come in the door, and it's always like what they didn't do. I said, do
Wow.
you ever just talk? Do you
Uh-huh.
ever just have a conversation?
Mhm.
And there was no response
So
because
how
he
was his relationship
realized
with his family?
I personally thought I had a good relationship with his family because
No,
my
how was
approach.
his relationship with his family?
He had a good relationship with his mother.
Mhm.
He had a good relationship with his children and with his mother. Um, and one of his nieces, but most of his family, they weren't around as much. Like when we started the church, his mother came to Delaware and joined our church,
Oh,
and
okay.
and he had a niece that would participate in a lot of the activities, but none of the other family members. They would come for like big occasions, big events, anniversaries, and big events, but not. They weren't really in Delaware all that often.
So, I'm going to assume now, did he pass away?
Yeah, he died of AIDS in 2010.
Oh, wow, that wasn't too long ago. So once you all broke up, what happened? What was your relationship like?
Once we broke up, initially the relationship was him trying to just continue to argue with me. He destroyed the house. We had made an agreement. We ended up having to go to court, and we had an agreement that was a list of items that was going to be his and what was going to be mine. And he took it upon himself to go down because he's still in the house at this point. He's not paying any of the bills. At this point now, he's also fired because he wasn't actually going to work. He was actually going cheating. So constantly calling out, end up getting him fired. And so he went down my side of the list. And by the time I got back in the house, when the lights and the electric and the gas and the water and everything was cut off, and I get back in the house, my stuff is completely trash. He sliced up the couch like he was slicing me and left the butcher knife sitting in the middle of the couch.
Now, have you gotten therapy to deal with this emotionally? Because it seemed like it was quite abusive.
Oh, my goodness, girl. I have the interesting thing is, for me, as bad as all that was, the worst came after I left. Because it's after I left that I began to get sick. And it was after I left that once I got sick, I then lost my job. And then it was the struggle through getting hospitalized repeatedly over and over and over again. And now you're hospitalized. Your job is insisting that you return. You can't physically return. So that is more when it's the destruction of years of what has happened is now taking its toll to the point that I finally realized that I needed help. And I did, and I sought help. Now,
so are you? So where are you now with that? So how is your HIV? How are you living with that? I want to ask you that question. I also want you to answer, what would you have done differently had you had the opportunity?
That's interesting. Well, let's start with where I am now medically. Medically, I still have a lot of problems because I don't just have the HIV. I have a lot of things going on. My kidneys are failing. I have diabetes. I have high blood pressure. I'm having problems with my heart. So there's a whole list of medical problems that I have. With the HIV, my numbers are way better than they were when I was leaving. That's what I was about to tell you of how I noticed the difference when I was sleeping with him. Even though I'm taking my medication on a regular basis, my numbers were constantly going down, and the viral load was continuing to go up. Since I have not had sex and allowed myself to be reinfected, my T cell numbers have gone up, and my viral load has gone down to undetectable, which is a blessing. But at the same time, I still have a weakened immune system. So I'm very susceptible to catching everything. So I do get sick, and I get sick a lot, and I'm in the hospital a lot of times. So physically, I'm not in the greatest of shape, but as long as God gives me a voice, and He allows these arthritic feet to move, and legs and knees and everything else that's falling apart to move, I'm going to move, and I'm going to do what He commands me to do.
But as you look
when
back,
it goes back, now look back and say, would I do anything different? Years ago, if you had asked me that question, I would have said, I want to go all the way back to the 10-year high school reunion and never date them. But now, today, as I look at my life, and as I look at this book, and as I look at how it's helping people, I clearly see all things working together for the good for them that love God and all the called according to His purpose. God is taking every single event that I have gone through, be it the addictions, be it the depression, be it the physical therapy, be it the adultery, be it the abuse, every single thing, and allowing me to minister to other people from an area of experience.
But what would you tell another woman, though, even though this has come together for you and you can be, so if another woman were to see the signs of this in the early relationship, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that they have to search inside of themselves and first seek God and seek His face, and seek when He is telling you to stay and when He is telling you to go. Not when the mate is telling you to stay and when they're telling you to go, but you really have to be in prayer, because I'm telling you, the day that I left, it was no question in my mind. It was like that God was telling me, now it's time for you to go. You have learned every lesson that I need you to learn, that I'm going to use for my glory in my time and in my way. And I still didn't get it then, because I suffered so much even after I left that day. I still didn't get it. It took me till just recently to fully get it. Wow. As I have written this book, now I get it, because I'm meeting so many people who are suffering and telling me their stories, and I tell them my stories, and I see where God wants to minister me to minister, where He wants me to minister. And if I hadn't gone through what I've gone through, I would not be able to share with them and tell them. So I'm honest. I'm very honest when it comes to my mistakes, because I don't just talk about his mistakes in the book. I'm very honest about my own mistakes in the book, so that people can make a decision for themselves.
And the book is called HIV Infected by Her Cheating Pastor Husband, and it's by Darlene King, and it's a wife's courageous true story of betrayal, survival, and forgiveness. And I tell you, when she first came on, I thought we'd spend about 20, 25 minutes. And just like her book, when she says, once you begin to hear this story, you cannot back away from it, because there are little bits and pieces of a lot of women in this book, a lot of women you know, or you may even be that woman. And as we wrap up, I just want to thank you. I have been at the end of my seat listening to this story, and like I said, it's a compilation of the lives of so many women And what happens with some of these men who just don't know how to treat a woman, and as you say in your book, don't have mutual love. So tell people where to buy the book.
You can buy the book from Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's on all the e-books, your Nook tablets, I'm trying to think of the other tablets. Just about all the tablets that sell books, you can get the book in all kind of e-formats. And it's everywhere. And
I want folks to also know, how do they contact you, because you need to be touring the country with this message. Young women, not so young. What is your phone number, your email? How can they reach you?
They can reach me at darleneking@hotmail.com or darleneking13@hotmail.com. And on Twitter is at darleneking13. And I spell Darlene DARLENEKING 13. That's my Twitter.
And now, there's a final message you want to leave before we close?
The message that I have is that this book is a roller coaster ride. In this conversation, I couldn't even begin to touch on all the things that have happened. I didn't get a chance to touch on the story of forgiveness, because it's a powerful story of how I truly came to forgive them, and I want everybody to have an opportunity to read it. But the book will make you laugh. It will make you cry. It will make you get angry. It will make you want to beat somebody up. It'll make you sad. It'll make you happy, and then it'll make you cry all over again. When I say it's a roller coaster ride, it truly is a roller coaster ride of emotions, and it's also meant to help people. And one thing that I want to say is, I forgive the women who slept with my husband. I've just put these stories in the book, hoping that the book will find them, that they will read it and get tested. And not just the women that he may have been with, but women, we have to get tested. Men, we have to get tested. The people in our communities are not getting tested. Test. That's
and when you get tested and you know you have it, then you need to
you need to see a doctor immediately, because 22 years now, I'm a 22-year survivor. Soon in January it'll be 23 years, and it will give you an opportunity to live.
Okay. Number one more time. Phone number one more time.
Well, my phone number is personal, but you can reach me through my email, and my email is darleneking@hotmail.com.
And that is easy.
Or darleneking13@hotmail.com.
Okay. Darlene, thank you so much. I hope that we can talk about getting you here to Pittsburgh and sharing that word, and I can possibly sit with you and interview you face-to-face for our show. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you and all of you've been through. This is really an inspirational story, too, as far as how you forgave and your survival. So I thank you. I'm going to thank our listeners.
I thank you
go to onyxwoman.com. And I'm sorry, Darlene.
I just want to thank you very much for having me. I truly appreciate it.
Oh, and I appreciate you. Thank you, folks, and goodbye.